Welcome again to a new episode of the KewCast. I'm John, and I'm joined again by my good pal, Eddie. How you doing,
John,
buddy?
Episode 81.
81. We are moving along.
Trucking along.
We were just talking before we pressed record that we're getting kind of good at the technology things. And, of course, I'm going to jinx this by saying that one of the cameras is going to die. But I've invested a lot of money in these three cameras.
What's the word out there? Like you do something 10,000 times and it becomes muscle memory?
Yeah.
Okay, so only 9,000 and change to go.
We'll take it. By the time we're 90 years old, we'll be pretty darn good at this.
That's not far away.
Well, we do have a good episode today. Kind of going a little bit off our normal script. Obviously, we're going to talk about some paddles, but we've also got like some kind of philosophic things.
Oh, goodness.
And you and I will surprise each other and do two fun facts. Did you pull up two fun facts today?
I'll get there.
Okay. All right.
I've got about, 90 minutes to figure something out.
Okay. Yeah, 90 minutes while I'm rambling on about paddle physics and other boring things. But yeah, so kind of a new take on our episode this week.
All right.
Eddie, you had a trip this weekend.
Yeah, just visiting my son out in Phoenix.
Oh, okay.
He started a job out there after graduation. So, yeah, it's good to catch up.
Yeah. What's his job?
He's doing some contract management for Boeing.
Okay.
So, big company.
Yeah.
Good entry-level job. We'll see how it goes for him.
That's his first job with Boeing?
First real job, yeah.
Wow. That's great. That's got to feel good, right? To get your kid out of the nest and he lands himself a job at Boeing.
Well, I don't care what it is as long as he's not on the family payroll.
Right. He could be worse. He'd be working in the basement here for
Makes such
Kew
a
Labs.
huge difference having, one fewer dependent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
You're there, right, John?
Yeah. Well, am I there yet?
Yes.
No. No. We had three dependents, heavily dependents.
Right.
Let's move on, Eddie.
Okay.
Let's jump into latest news. So if you all aren't following Speak Pickleball, our good friend John at Speak Pickleball, he has a great Instagram account, and he's always posting, really, and a good website too. But just wanted to give him a shout out. This is where I figured out about Pickleball Vision's new AI that could actually be a competition for DUPR because it rates you. So if you have a plan with Pickleball Vision, you are able to get like per game how they score you in terms of your performance based on the same scale from 2.0 to 7.0 that DUPR uses, which I thought was pretty cool. Now it's clearly it's beta, right? And it's clearly being revised, but yeah, it gives you like a breakdown not only of your overall score, but of like how you did, how everything kind of contributes to that overall score in terms of your serves, your drives, your thirds, and everything like that.
So I'm confused. Is this a camera-based system?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, let's rewind, Eddie, and talk about Pickleball Vision. I obviously haven't used it then, right?
Right.
So it's just a web application you can go on, upload any video from an iPhone up to a fancy camera, and it'll analyze it for you, and it gives you all these amazing metrics, like shows you your ball path. You get to choose who you are in that it only does doubles right now, I'm pretty sure. Gives you average serve miles per hour, percentiles for all your thirds and fifths, and you can skip to like the biggest rally of the game immediately, and it gives you just a ton of really useful information. So I just tried it, like the free plan. I'll definitely be getting a subscription. I think it's like $100 a year or something like that for X amount of hours of footage, but really impressive platform. Uses AI, and part of this AI is this skill rating. And like I said, it is in beta, and they're making improvements. So back to the skill rating. Well, first, let's go back to Speak Pickleball's post. He writes that in Instagram, PB Vision AI is trying something new and could change the way we rate skill. Yeah, you don't have to post on Reddit asking strangers to rate your gameplay anymore. Do you think DUPR needs competition? So that's kind of a good question. Like, if this system actually becomes more proficient than DUPR, would it actually replace it?
It seems to me they're kind of complementary services at this point versus competitive services. I could see one taking over the other, or forming a partnership somehow to really kind of leverage what both do.
Yeah. True. And one important thing to note is that this system and PB Vision is reflecting your rating in one game. And we all know that, I can fluctuate from playing great in one game to the very next game playing like a 3-0 level, right? So so it's not like, you can get one rating for one game and it's going to be your DUPR rating, right? And DUPR obviously has a big head start on PB Vision in terms of the amount of data
I'm really curious about this because, when I play a 5-0, they can kind of make me look like a 3-5. I hope I'm a better player than that. So it's curious to see how, both how you're doing, but vis-a-vis your performance via other people.
Yeah.
And how the system detects all that and processes it.
For sure. It says your PB Vision skill rating reflects how well you played, whether or not you won. It's calculated from dozens of performance signals that capture things like movement speed, shot quality, error rate, positioning, and other indicators of play quality. Ratings are currently available for doubles games only with single support planned for the future. DUPR measures results, who won and by how much. PB Vision measures performance, how you played, how well you played, and what skills you demonstrated. Both use the same 2.0 to 8.0 scale, but represent different perspectives. A difference between your DUPR and PB Vision rating doesn't mean either is wrong. DUPR is outcome-based, while PB Vision isolates your performance within each video. As you upload more representative games, the two ratings often align over time. So that's interesting. Yeah, so it kind of keeps track of your meta score, I guess, after you upload more and more games. So I uploaded a game and just to see, and got to say, Eddie, I love this. Race me as a 5-0.
Hey.
Clearly, it's in beta.
It's got to be.
Right. But the video I uploaded was with me playing with Carson against James Ignatowicz and Eric Flatland. So it's just like levels are all over the place on this court. So it was just like, not the best video to upload. But it gives you so the 5-0 is divided into, your rating's divided into your serve, your return, offense, defense, agility, and consistency. Yeah, so it's kind of pretty cool that it does all that.
What is your camera setup for something like that?
I had, what's the gimbal camera? We both have DJI. Yeah, just in the back of the court, corner of the court, one angle, and it's amazing.
Figures everything out from there.
Okay. I upload it, then the AI takes about 30 minutes to analyze the video. And then the amount of data you can drill into with this thing is crazy. Is outstanding. I was duly impressed. Yeah.
Have you seen those AI glasses? I think Ray-Ban has a pair. Oakley is getting into the game. I wonder if there's a way to integrate some of that into this kind of technology.
Interesting. Yeah, like first person
footage,
maybe. So I just thought that was really cool. I'm going to be playing around with PB Vision a lot more. I definitely will be getting an account with them.
Sounds great.
Eddie, did you get a chance to see any of the singles matches this weekend?
No, I was tied up with family business.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I didn't watch much, but I thought it was an interesting format. So the Lifetime Atlanta Open took place, and it's only a singles tournament, right? And it was pros from APP, PPA, and, it's good to see, everybody kind of mix up like that. And so it turns out that Lea Jansen ended up getting gold in women's, so beating Parris Todd in the finals, and then our guy, Chris Hayworth.
Oh, my God, he is on fire.
Got gold again, defeating Fed Staksrud in the finals. And another cool thing about this was that since it was just singles, it was best 3 out of 5 games. So that was the format we've never seen before in singles. PPA and APP uses best 2 out of 3 for singles because it's a pretty brutal format for your body if you are competing in, multiple divisions. But that was cool to see because there were quite a few that went to 5 games.
Oh, man.
I imagine that these poor pros are just exhausted, right?
Man, I'm cooked after 3 games of singles, much less days of matches.
And a lot of them are going straight to Vegas right now. I did see that, fatigue probably did play a role in some of these games. For example, Parris Todd had that really grindy 5-game match with Caitlin Christian on the same day that she had to go up against Lea for finals. Not to take anything away from Lea, she played amazing. That was really cool to see. I think went to 5 games for that, and Lea pulled it out at the end. But I do think that Parris Todd, by that 5th game, playing 2 5-game matches in one day, was just like she was cooked, right? So, but yeah, it was cool to see Andre Agassi up there giving the awards. He's affiliated with Lifetime and that ball and all that. So yeah, just thought it was a kind of a cool format.
Anna Lee taking the weekend off?
Yeah, she was not competing.
Okay.
Probably giving her body a break. Well-needed break. All right, Eddie, let's move into paddles of the week.
Yeah, it's been a couple days since we hit these. But
Yeah, let's start with the Forge and Bond. So there's a partial embargo lift on the Forge and Bond. They're actually launching on October 23rd, and then we can provide full reviews, but we can just talk about how they hit, and I think I can even show an x-ray. I think that's fair. But these are a brand new company, and they're entirely American-made. They're coming out with this Runout series, and it comes in your 3 shapes: elongated, hybrid, and wide body, or they're calling it standard. And some really cool technology behind these. And Justin, Pickleball, etc. Justin has been working with them. The main thing that separates these from other paddles is, they're not going to stand on their own, is what they're calling a fiber fusion technology. So the frame and handle are forged out of a thermoplastic forged carbon fiber. And you can see that the frame. So it kind of looks like a hybrid between a edge guard and a edgeless paddle, and that is actually the frame that goes all the way down into the handle. By the way, these handles, fantastic. They're entirely forged. Some of the best handles on the market. I like everything about them, including how the end tapers kind of just right. I don't like one that's too thin on the end. I don't like one that's too thick on the end. This one's got the Goldilocks effect.
Just right.
It's just right. So a lot of cool stuff going into this. They're, like I said, 100% American made, and also they are 100% upcycled and recyclable. So the materials in these, I think just the frame, because they're standard carbon fiber on this face, but the frame is, unlike a lot of the plastics that go into our pickleball paddles, these can actually be recycled. They're not really classifiable in terms of our standard Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4 classification system. They are not thermoformed, but they are foam enhanced, and then they have this full frame system that's basically forged out of a single piece going all the way down into the handle. So it is kind of a hybrid between a Gen 1, because it's not thermoformed, and a Gen 3 because it has foam enhancements inside. So the way it's constructed is the full panel of the core and the face layup materials are made first. They're cut to size. They channel out some channels here for EVA, and then everything is assembled within the frame. And then, I don't know exactly. I know it's not thermoform, so there's not a lot of heat and pressure. I don't know exactly what the finishing process looks like. But yeah, I put an x-ray up here on the screen. You can see the standard honeycomb polypropylene for the core, and then you can see these EVA foam channels that go down from the lateral edges into the neck region. So it's kind of like the opposite of the Yola diving board. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah. So it starts here.
Mm-hmm. Starts there,
moves
goes
down.
all the way down there.
Okay.
Exactly, yeah. So it's not the top and the sides, it's the bottom and the sides in this case. And you can see the frame elements down in the handle, like those linear parts in the x-ray that are a little more dense. I imagine that's part of the forged construction, going into the handle. But
Standard cell size?
It looks like 8mm cell size, yeah, so standard. So lots of cool stuff going into these, and you and I hit with them for a couple games last week.
Yeah, before we jump into that, what's happening here with the frame? It seems to kind of fully encapsulate the face.
Yeah. I mean, it is just that. It's kind of similar to the tennis racket frame, right? It's just one piece that goes all the way around the core and the face layup down into the handle. There's even, like a neck, and if you took the grip off, you'd just see that it is a single continuous piece all the way through. Yeah. Yeah. It's not the first time it's been done in terms of a frame, but it's the first time this particular method of using a frame has been done on a paddle, which I think works out pretty well for this. Yeah. So, yeah, we had a chance to hit. You want to give us some initial impressions, Eddie?
These are very stiff paddles, John, both in terms of ball responsiveness off the face, but the full body of it is very stiff. I mean, getting any sort of movement or bend in this frame, not going to happen very easily.
Right.
And that stiffness gives it some good pop, but it's kind of that instantaneous response that you would kind of expect from like a Gen 2 14 mil paddle.
Yeah.
Just that very stiff, immediate response. So that catch and release, high dwell time that we've all come to kind of appreciate lately in Gen 4s, this isn't that paddle.
Yeah, true.
It's entirely different.
True. Yeah, there's some unique properties. You're totally right about the stiffness of it, which, can be good or bad depending on your personal tastes. Some people like a more plush paddle, but I think the stiffness, you're right, is derived mostly from the frame, which I feel like is a good thing. We talked about, whether or not frame flex can kill sweet spot a couple of podcasts ago, and I do think that flexibility in frames can be good or bad, but mostly it's bad in the sense of it's polarizing for a lot of people because you're getting a lot of the ball energy is being absorbed into the vibration of the paddle rather than being returned to the ball. So that avoids this with the stiff frame. And given that it's not thermoformed, I feel like that stiff frame makes it play better for a non-thermoformed paddle because you do get on, the Bantams and all the other Gen 1 paddles, even though they play great, there are dead spots up top and down toward the neck, probably because of the frame flex that you're getting on those, which is mitigated with this unibody frame that they have on this one. But yeah, overall, the ball response is very stiff. It does feel, I think you're right, it feels like a 14 millimeter Gen 2 on initial hits, right? It gives you that kind of immediate responsive feedback. But there's some subtleties there from the foam enhancements that you're not getting with, I feel like, the Gen 2s or the Gen... And it just that kind of the hybrid nature of its construction is giving it some personality characteristics that I just couldn't really put my finger on with just a couple of games. So I'm going to really look forward to playing with these a lot more. Firepower-wise, I'd put them, hard to say because initially it felt like top of all court, but with big swings, there's good pop. With big swings, actually, I'm going to reconsider that top of all court and put it in the bottom of the power category. Yeah. Close to I'd say a little juicier actually than the Franklin C45s, something along those lines.
Okay.
How about you?
I would have said top of all court. Okay. And I would still say that.
Okay.
Yeah. I would like to play around with some perimeter weight distribution on these. You did throw on some weight on one of the paddles, and it really helped the feel of the paddle.
Yeah.
As well as ball responsiveness coming off the face.
Yeah.
There was a touch of harshness for me without the weight, but with the added weight, it really seemed to tame things down a little bit in terms of that harshness.
Yeah. Yeah. So on the hybrid, I added 1 gram per inch tuning tape to basically the entire lateral edge. And that muted, not in terms of power, but muted like the vibration frequencies enough that it made it feel a little plusher and more to my liking, and less, stiff. But yeah, I agree. I think these benefit a lot from perimeter weighting, but I'm excited to play with these more, and I'm glad to see a American company entirely made in the USA playing around with different formulations and different ways to produce a paddle than the ones we've typically seen here in the US, which are, the Gen 1 paddles. Some of them play great. The Paddle Techs, the Engages. Thompson is another of these American companies that's innovating in a similar regard because they have the single frame as well with that Gen 1 construction, but these are different than all of those. So I think it's a good entry into the paddle market for Forge and Bond.
It's a great looking paddles.
Yeah.
I like the edge guard. It's got kind of that embedded carbon fiber look. It looks very durable. It's very sleek looking.
Yeah.
It's got a great look.
Yeah, I dig
And you're right, the grip feels fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. All righty, let's move on to the Engage Alpha Pro. So We talked a couple of weeks ago about the Engage ProFoam, which is their full foam paddle. They've got another new one out right now, this Alpha Pro, which retails for $260. And if you get on their website, the description, there's a lot of kind of jargon in their descriptions, as Engage usually does. But what it sounded like originally to me was a Gen 3 foam enhanced paddle. What they're calling their Impact Edge foam barrier plus their Response Pro plus foam, I imagine is like a, edge foam plus an EVA band and things like that. So Gen 3 foam enhanced is where I put this.
That's this one.
That's this one, yeah. And I did get a clarification email from Engage that, yes, it is, in fact, a Gen 3 paddle. I don't have an x-ray of this yet, but there is foam injection around the entire paddle head of EVA foam inside the yellowish perimeter foam that you usually see in thermofoam paddles. It said EVA foam goes around the paddle head, but it stops at the bottom of the side before curving back toward the handle. So it sounds like the Yola diving board peninsula type of arrangement in there. There's also, they said there's a different EVA foam at the throat just above the grip / the bottom of the handle face, so probably around that rubber band area. It said what's different with this foam is that they wrapped the EVA foam with two different foam injection materials, one along one side and a different type along the other side. Don't really know exactly what that means. I want to x-ray it to see if there's like a blob of EVA right there at the bottom of the neck or what's going on there, but doesn't quite sound like the Yola foam inserts on the neck. It sounds like it's something's more going on down here, which is interesting. I don't think we've really seen that in other paddles. Don't know what the purpose is. Maybe it's for vibration dampening or neck flexibility. And then a polymer core on the inside of all that, so honeycomb polypropylene. One thing that I didn't get clarification on that I just saw in their advertisement that sounds intriguing to me is what they're calling the fusion control application layer, which is something that's put in between the carbon fiber layers and the core, so bonding them into a more single cohesive unit. Now, this could simply be jargon for the layer of epoxy, like the cloth, or it could be something fancier that I think sounds pretty cool, and that would be like some kind of like a gel or something to change the bonding experience and fuse them in different ways, which I think there's a lot of potential in that. But this also, like I said, might just be jargon.
No hit on Engage because all the paddle companies do this, but the marketing jargon is just insane in this business. So many words to describe absolutely nothing at times.
Right. One key thing about this is, before we talk about its play characteristics, it still has the Engage limited lifetime warranty, which I think for a Gen 3 paddle is pretty outstanding. You're not going to get that lifetime warranty at many other paddle companies for this build. So just wanted to throw that out there. I did get a KewCOR on this of 0.38, which is high in the all-court category. But let's talk about how they played, Eddie. Let's get your thoughts first.
Yeah, not crazy powerful, but very controllable in a lot of ways. For me, like the feeling of dwell from this paddle, it's not over-dwelly. And it's like, we're doing a lot of Goldilocks today, but it's kind of in that Goldilocks zone of just that good feeling responsiveness coming from the face. Nothing crazy in any dimension. Mm-hmm. Not spin, not power, not pop. But it feels good.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And before I forget, these had to be made in China, right? Unlike Engage's other paddles, this is thermoformed, foam enhanced and all that, which has the signature of China, but not a knock at all. I would, on the flip side of that, I would say this is Engage's best playing paddle.
I was going to ask you how you would compare this against the ProFoam, and for me, I felt like this paddle was more forgiving and better balanced than the ProFoam.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't necessarily think about directly comparing those, but I should. And, I think there's a market for each of these paddles for Engage. The ProFoam is going to play more like the Carbon True Foam Genesis, if you like that denser feel that's very, very linear. And this is this has more of the Gen 3 feel, like a lot of other paddles. If you like the honeycomb polypropylene response you're getting, this is also fairly linear, but less so, I'd say, than the ProFoam.
How would you compare the feel between the two?
The feel, this is on the stiffer, hollower side, and the ProFoam is on the softer, denser side. Yeah.
Okay.
And firepower, I need to dial those in a little more before I could say for sure. I feel like they're similar levels of firepower between those two. But yeah, I mean, I thought that it played great. It's given me kind of, Franklin C45 vibes. And that's similar level of firepower, the similar level of linearity in terms of response off the face. I only played with it a couple of games, so I can't give a very nuanced discussion of its play style and everything else that comes with time. But initial response was good. It doesn't do anything crazy, but there's some perks to that too. Like, it's very predictable, and you're not going to get a ball fly 10 feet out that you'd expect it to land in.
The only knock for me on this, John, is the value proposition.
Mm-hmm.
I think this one's priced at around
$270.
Yeah. That for me, for this kind of technology, is, I would expect class leading, and this is class competitive, we'll say, but not necessarily leading.
That's a good way to put it. On the flip side, there is a lifetime warranty, so if that's important to you, that might justify the cost. But yeah, there's not a big distinction between this and many other Gen 3 paddles out there. But good to see Engage, moving into this realm and getting some performance paddles that play differently than their current line of performance paddles that they've had going for years. So quite a big adventure for Engage.
Should look at the other end of the Engage spectrum.
Yes. So they did send this, and they're not claiming this is groundbreaking technology or anything, but this is a new budget paddle from Engage. So the Encore Pro version 3 to replace their version 2, $70 paddle.
Is this Gen 1?
It's Gen 1.
Okay.
Yeah, cold press, polymer core. There's grit on the surface, and, it plays like you'd expect. It does actually get good spin with that grip, but I don't know how long it's going to last. It seems to be a spray-on grit. Very small paddle. I didn't get the dimensions, but it feels like it's about about 15 inches long by 7 inches wide, right? It feels like 2 inches shorter and less narrow than what it should be. Say what?
A wooden paddle.
Yeah, kind of. So, I mean, I think there's a place, in the entry to pickleball for this paddle, but even at $70, man, 2 years ago that would have been a great deal. Now you can buy a $92 paddle, the Luzz Cannon, and it plays 99% as good as, or 100% as good as $333 paddles, right? So it's hard to make a case that this is a good deal even at $70. But I get what they're doing here. What do you think of it?
It's kind of fun to get on the court with these older paddles, just to get a real comparison to how far we've come with the technology. Because I mean, we're in this iterative process, right? And you and I are kind of in it lockstep. It's not often we can see kind of how far really we've come in 2 years, and it's a long way because man, you can't hit the ball out with this paddle.
Right. I had the same experience, Eddie. I was hitting it. It does feel like the sweet spot feels pretty good on this for a Gen 1 paddle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't feel a lot of dead spots, on the sides and top and bottom. Maybe they're doing something, maybe not. I don't know. But same, I was hitting it and I was like, man, my drops are pretty good with this.
We were playing in a stiff wind the other day with these, and man, I was putting everything I had into it just to serve deep with it.
Yeah, but it is fun to see a bigger picture and go back to these Gen 1 paddles occasionally.
Sure.
It does, and another thing with this, lifetime warranty.
Right.
So
it should hold up pretty well.
Should hold up. All right, good sir. Let's move on to the next segment here. I took in a dozen or so paddles to not dermatologist, the chiropractor. Just as odd, but in context, maybe not, to get x-rays. So we got some x-ray catching up to do. We've been talking about some of these paddles before we had any x-rays. So we'll look at the Engage ProFoam first here. We were just discussing that. I've got it outside of the studio here,
right.
But we'll just look at the x-ray. As suspected, it is a single layer of EPP, expanded polypropylene, with cavities. It is a different arrangement than other paddles, but similar to the Carbon True Foam Genesis and to others like the enhanced Gen 4.5. That's exactly what it felt like. I don't think there's edge foam along this, as I suspected. I thought it felt like a thermoform frame because it was stiffer, but I'm not seeing the edge foam. I'm seeing an edge guard, and that's it. So just
a sheet of EPP.
Yeah, with some perimeter weighting.
Okay,
you can see, so the tape on the 12 o'clock is actually what I use to tape it to the board for the X-ray. But the stuff along the 9 and 3 o'clock positions is actually interior. It looks like, that's definitely fiberglass. Yeah, so fiberglass is a little denser than carbon fiber, so they're putting some internal perimeter weighting, which I think definitely is a good idea, especially for a paddle that doesn't have like dual density foam. It's just one sheet of EPP or.
Are you seeing anything here in the neck area that would be a kind of a stiffening agent, or is that just a?
Yeah, it's a good point. I am kind of seeing that now that you pointed it out. I don't know if it might just be the pallets, the handle pallets.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the handle pallets I'm seeing, but I'm seeing something also coming up just above the rubber band.
Right.
And extending up the neck about an inch.
Mm-hmm.
That might be something to stiffen the neck there.
Interesting.
That's a good call. All right, let's move on to our Adidas AdiPower. We actually have the physical paddle here too, and this is an interesting X-ray. And I thought I had a novel idea, and then I remembered that Justin already had this idea. Does the arrangement of the foam remind you anything? The Adidas logo. What they could have done,
maybe a little, it's done it on an angle.
Yeah, if they made like
straight down.
If they made the bottom one longest, the middle one next to longest,
that would have been clever.
Shorter.
That would have been clever.
That would have been funny. But yeah, so you're seeing here that a Gen 3 foam enhanced in an iterative way that's unique from other paddles. So we've got presumably EVA foam along the sides and the top, and the EVA is notched in there, similar to kind of like the Honolulu J2 and F, but it's not all foam. This is honeycomb polypropylene in the center. But then you have that like linear band up top and kind of a square. It's interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting way to do it. And it's standard cell size, 8 millimeter cell size for the polypropylene. I think I'm seeing edge foam in this too. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's edge foam. If you look, it goes all the way down into the handle as well. So it looks like a thermoformed paddle with edge foam and then foam enhancements inside of that.
And is that foam or is that some internal weighting that goes all kind of in a horseshoe around the top?
That is presumably some internal weighting. I saw that, I think, on all three of the shapes. And it is probably why they have such heavy swing weights, right? All that density in the top of the paddle is pushing.
It's a good bit of it. It's almost from here all the way around.
Yeah. I wonder what the reasoning was for that, besides like plow through. Maybe Johnkew or one of their other pros gave them some feedback that they like, some more whip, more head-heavy paddle, and that's what they went with for the market version. So cool stuff to see that. Next is the Element 6 Zephyr. I was wrong. I thought that it played like a multi-density full foam core, and I was expecting to see something more akin to like the Selkirk Boomstick, the Bread and Butter Loco, and those. But this is a full foam EPP with no cavities in it, and then a single band of presumably edge foam, like the yellowish expanding foam along the edge going down into the handle. So pretty simple layup here. It is, I guess you could call it dual density foam since there's two types of foam. But
is that a fiberglass square in the middle of the face?
That's my presumption too, that there is a fiberglass square here in the center, which probably contributes to some poppiness of the paddle. But they must be using a very low density EPP foam in there. Actually, let's zoom in here. I'm seeing some linearity from side to side on the paddle. I don't know if that's something on the face layup or the foam itself. No, I don't think
every inch or so?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that's something in the layup because I'm seeing, when I zoom in a lot, I can see the granularity of the EPP that looks like styrofoam. But then there's that linearity going side to side on the paddle, which I imagine is something in a layup. I mean, it's not unheard of and very common actually to use unidirectional carbon fiber pre-preg in there, but I've never seen that actually show up in an X-ray, so it might be something different in here.
Man, my OCD wants to just jump in there and straighten out that fiberglass square.
Me too.
It's off like 5 degrees.
Right. It's interesting that it is, even though it's offset, I only see one square, and typically when you lay the fiberglass on each side, it's kind of offset a little bit. Maybe that's something I don't know, something in the center of the paddle is about what I was about to say, but that doesn't make any sense. So, or does it? Something new,
like sandwiched inside the foam.
Maybe
that would be crazy.
That would be weird. But. All right, let's move on to the Friday Fever 102 X-Ray. And this is their new wide body that was released last Friday. And we mentioned this last Friday. By the way, I had 3 gram tungsten pods at 3 and 9 on this. So that's what you're seeing here. This is not something that came stock with the paddle, but everything else is. And we can see, this typical Gen 3 of their previous Friday Fevers. So very similar to the Yola diving board effect with a layer of edge foam around the entire perimeter, plus the EVA or whatever foam they're using softer inside of that forms like a horseshoe shape around the honeycomb polypropylene. But you can see that this is large cell, 10 millimeter cell size polypropylene, which is new. And you can see that piece of rubber separating the interior foam from the honeycomb, which is interesting. Kind of looks like a wiggly worm in there.
Is that kind of rough scalloped edge that we're seeing? Okay.
Yeah, it's apparently a piece of rubber that looks a lot like a piece of linguine.
Yeah.
And that's just following the dimensions of the honeycomb cutout. Yeah, so that's interesting to see as well. Let's move on to the last one here, the Honolulu J6 NF, which is their elongated notched foam shape. And as expected, just like all the others, there's been some talk whether or not the interior foam and exterior foam line up across all their shapes. So are they like CNCing the foam for each paddle shape, or do they have a more kind of standard interior or exterior shape that then is slotted in? You can see there's a little bit of, it looks like they kind of stuffed it in here and there. Like there's big gaps in certain areas and smaller gaps.
Definitely not what resembled the X-ray from the J2 NF, which had a much tighter tolerance.
Exactly. A lot of variability in this. I don't know if that means anything in terms of
Do you feel like that paddle, the J6, hits as well as the J2?
Yeah. I love this thing.
Yeah, okay.
Do you?
It's different.
Yeah. I could main this. I really like this shape and the performance of this.
That shape that's cool.
It's phenomenal. Yeah. It's just an amalgamation of smart smart, iterative changes in the shape with the typical core of the NF series, but just comes together great. But yeah, I don't think this kind of irregularity in the notching is anything to be concerned of in terms of performance or even durability, but it's just a curiosity.
Yep.
All right. That is it for X-rays. I do want to move on to the next segment, which is our, I just wanted to test the Luzz Inferno. I've been playing with that a lot. I feel like I don't even have a main, Eddie. I'm lost.
That's sad.
It's
so sad. But it's great because that means you've got opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, technically the Gearbox GX2 Power hybrid is still my main. That's always what I start with, kind of calibrate everything, and I love it every time I play with it. It's probably what I'll play with at Worlds. But man, there's just so many good options, and I'm just so excited to always hit the 3 or 4 other paddles that I have in my bag that rotate continuously, right?
And the Luzz is definitely one of those.
Yeah, that Inferno, man. Every time I play with that, I just connect with it so well. But I have noticed that it's starting to, it feels like the firepower is getting more juicy.
Okay.
On it. Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I've been hitting some, rocket serves with it. I'm like, I don't remember it starting this way. So I wanted to test it. I've got about 12 hours of play on it now, and I've got a chart here that shows the KewCOR along the entire paddle face of the new versus used one here. And you can see that the used one with 12 hours is indeed heating up. Now, a couple of interesting things here. First, I'll just talk about the difference. So the max score, KewCOR score of the out-of-the-box one was 0.394. And if you go down to the chart here, that puts it, lower in the high power category, right? Closer to like the Franklin C45 Dynasty 16 mil, the Proton Flamingo, those sorts of paddles.
Which, anecdotally sounds about right.
Yeah. And then it heated up to 0.413. And if you go back down to the chart, that puts it right in the middle of that high power category. So, a jump right around the Rhombus Quanta R3, in between that and the Selkirk Boomstick wide body. So, yeah, that feels about right too in terms of how it plays currently. So, yeah, it's heating up, but not alarmingly so. I'll continue to monitor it, but I do trust these full foam constructions more than I do the Gen 3 with honeycomb polypropylene in terms of durability, right? They're not core crushing like we saw.
And this is the same paddle, John?
Same paddle,
okay.
Right? Same paddle. But the most interesting thing I feel like with this chart is it shows that the performance location actually changed with the break-in. So it became, if you look at the original, the brand new one, the performance location was 4 inches from the top of the paddle. That's where it got the highest KewCOR. That changed with the used one up to 5 inches. So it actually dropped lower on the face of the paddle. And I don't know what to make of that. I don't know why that would be the case, because I typically hit right at 4 inches or even above that. So it's not like I'm hitting that 5-inch location over and over and creating a softer foam in there. Don't know. It's up for inspection and debate. I'd like to hear from any of our viewers what they think that could be caused by. I bet Keith will email me something very intelligent and physics-based on this, engineering-based as well. What are your thoughts, Eddie?
I'm curious, John. Without seeing the data on other paddles in front of me here, it seems like the core values are pretty consistent top to bottom on the face. Would you say that is true?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is another good discussion of this, and that is especially on the new one, very flat curve there.
Yeah.
It does not, you don't have a high peak and low valleys. It's just almost the same across the entire, longitude of the paddle, which is indicative of a very wide sweet spot, or long sweet spot, I should say. Wide going side to side.
And the consistent feel that we've both been experiencing with this paddle, which is one of the reasons we like it so much.
Right.
It's just got a lot of intuitive consistency across the face that makes it very kind of forgiving and predictable.
Yeah, I agree. As we're talking here, I'm coming up with a hypothesis on why the sweet spot or the performance spot dropped on this.
Okay.
I think it might be not anything to do with the interior foam, the EPP foam, but the band of EVA foam around that loosening up and creating more of a trampoline effect, right? So you can imagine the EVA goes all the way around, floats the EPP in the interior. As the EVA gets softer, it's like the springs of the trampoline get softer, and the center of that trampoline is going to be more responsive at that point versus new. If the EVA is a little stiffer and still connected in places to the other parts of the paddle, then you're going to get more of that springboard effect, a little bit more of that and less of the trampoline. So maybe it's becoming more trampoline-y.
I'd be curious to see how this one performs kind of side by side with their other offering, which is really just a change in kind of that core construction, right? The MPP versus the EPP, to see how that might compare.
Yeah. Actually, I've been calling this EPP. It's MPP on the Inferno and EPP on the Tornado. So is that what you meant? Compare the Tornado to this? Yeah, you're right. That would be cool. So little insights from the Canon here. Let's move on, Eddie.
Got your tip of the week.
Tip of the week. This is going to get a little heady, a little esoteric, so bear with me. But I think it was on Quotes of the Day. Occasionally I'll get a quote that catches my eye. This one was from Hunter S. Thompson, of all people. He's not somebody I consider like an idol or anything, but I enjoy his stuff. But he was only 20 years old when he wrote this, so that's what caught my eye. But he was a big thinker when he was young. But it was a letter written by this 20-year-old Hunter S. Thompson to a friend, kind of his friend was searching for meaning of life. And paraphrasing here, and I'll get into some quotes, but to paraphrase, he's basically saying that each person is shaped by their life experiences, so those experiences continually change us. So the question he posed is it necessary to look for goals? Should we be goal-driven if our experiences continually changes? So let's say we set a goal to become a fireman, and we go up, start that journey to become a fireman. And along the way, we have many different experiences that pull us in different directions, and maybe we should follow those experiences instead of being laser-focused on that end goal, right? So what he's saying basically is because of this, when we set fixed, tangible goals, we might lose interest in achieving that particular goal over time. So the person we become along the journey might be something entirely different. So this is a quote now, "To put our faith in tangible goals would seem to be at least unwise. We do not strive to be firemen, bankers, policemen, or doctors. We strive to be ourselves," right? So I'll start paraphrasing again here. So instead of chasing specific titles or roles like doctor or banker, we should be focusing on becoming our true selves. So that doesn't mean we can't pursue the goals to become a doctor or any kind of profession, but the goals we choose should fit who we are rather than forcing us to become something that we're not. This is all like, this was meaningful to me because somehow I've ended up as a paddle reviewer as my main
was never your goal?
Identity and profession and everything, right? And it was never my goal. And it just so happened that along this long, windy journey I've had through my life, which has been fantastic, and I still love archaeology and all the things that have made me me, I've always kind of followed this compass where what are my strengths and where do they best fit? And I've been experimental with those strengths and different things. And it ended up that, pickleball paddles for some reason were a really great fit for that skill set that I developed on my path to an archaeologist. And I'm so glad I was open to actually doing that. And it was the struggle for me. I'd like that concept or that idea of giving up archaeology for pursuing paddle. It took me a long time to come to that. It's scary to think, I've been working at becoming a professional archaeologist for 30 years now, or 25 years. And, that's my identity. And are my colleagues going to laugh at me when they realize what I've done? And is it stupid? Is this a bubble? But I followed it anyway, and I'm so glad I did,
I think there's a degree of risk tolerance that goes with all of that, right?
Yeah.
It's the giving up of something that is known for something that is unknown, but also outside of the career things and all the preparation you did for your previous career. It's paying bills.
Mm-hmm.
It's all of those things that we all kind of fight with and struggle with every day, right? So, how did you get through that? That risk taking that made it acceptable for you?
Yeah. I mean, it just took, looking at the books and seeing where the trends were going with income from both and tapering off the archaeology as I ramped up the pickleball and it was very cautious and, fiscally cautious. And there wasn't a ton of risk. I mean, there's still risk, right? Maybe it is a bubble. Maybe pickleball is going to go the way of your rollerblading or something. But I've always got the safety net of falling back into archaeology. I can go back into it tomorrow if I want to, right? So that was kind of the thing that was like, all right, I'd be stupid not to try this because I would love to retire doing this. This is something I would absolutely retire doing, and there's not a lot of risk in pursuing it.
I have one kid who just graduated with his master's degree recently, and I got another kid in college, and I think about like all the kids that change their majors along their way, sometimes multiple times. College is really a time where people find themselves, and
exactly.
Some are really tied to those long-term goals that you mentioned, that I've got to do this, and whatever hardship and weird feelings I may have over the path, I'm going to get there, where others are, I guess, more flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what? I find great joy in this other pathway that I just discovered, and so I'm going to follow that. So it's really interesting how people kind of make their way in the world. Yeah,
for sure. And you're right. It ultimately comes back to you have bills to pay, and can you pay those with kind of this openness to explore different things, right? It's one thing to say, the journey, it's all about the journey and not the end goal. It's another thing to say, well, you can't be too wishy-washy along the way and just go wherever the wind blows you and wherever your desires push you, because you do have to eventually make money, right?
And I think that your path of using sort of a judicious level of caution makes sense.
Yeah.
It's okay to pursue dreams and to take on risk, but maybe don't throw away everything in the meantime.
Yeah. It's not like I ran into my archaeology office and flipped everybody the bird and was like, so long, suckers. Yep. Right? I was, I still have good friends. And, in fact, I still have an office here at the Paleo West office in Colorado.
Well, John, those stone tools will be waiting for you when you're ready.
They're not going anywhere. All right. Well, let's move on to another new segment, Eddie. We're just going bananas here with new things
I like it.
this week. So I wanted to do something new. We don't have to do this every week, but I wanted to do 2 fun facts. So each of us bring two new things.
We're each doing 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 fun facts to the table. If you don't have anything this week, I'll do mine. But if you can think of something by the end of this. My fun fact is the Fruit of the Loom logo.
Okay.
I'm going to show you this.
You're going to show me what? Your underwear?
No. For those of you watching, I'm turning my iPad toward Eddie. So which of these is the real Fruit of the Loom logo?
I am going to say the left-hand one with the cornucopia.
Oh, look at you knowing the name of that fruit basket. So there are 2 logos here for those just listening. One, Fruit of the Loom on the left has like a basket horn, the cornucopia with fruit pouring out of it. The other on the right is just the fruit with no horn, right? Turns out that it is not the one with the cornucopia.
Okay.
The real Fruit of the Loom does not have the cornucopia. And this is an example of the Mandela Effect. Mm-hmm. Yeah, where the Mandela Effect is where a large group of people believe something that actually isn't true, right? And it goes back to Nelson Mandela. And a lot of people have a memory of Nelson Mandela dying in prison, right? And he was in prison, but he was released from prison and died at home 12 years later. So that's where it was coined. And this is a fascinating thing too. Like if we deal with this with eyewitness testimony, which is kind of a part of what I used to be teaching in terms of archaeological theory. It ties in. I don't need to get into the details, but a lot of people like misremember, especially in mass, right? When something kind of goes around through the grapevine, through oral tradition. Other examples of the Mandela Effect is the quote from Star Wars, "Luke, I am your father." It's not actually what Darth Vader said. He said, "No, I am your father." And everybody remembers it as, "Luke, I am your father." Another one from Snow White. It's not "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of all." The Queen actually says, "Magic mirror on the wall," right? So there's probably different ways that these happen, each individually, but it is curious that most of us misremember these big Mandela effects. So anyway, Snopes, going back to the Fruit of the Loom logo, Snopes did a deep dive on this, and there's another. Do you see this guy?
No.
But this is a historic image collection of the Fruit of the Loom logo. It goes all the way back to 1893, and the first one was just a bunch of fruit. 1927 and 1936, more fruit, all the way up to current. Never was there a cornucopia in this. Now, there are some images online of like the cornucopia on an old Fruit of the Loom shirt, and don't know the source of that. Maybe it was like a Chinese knockoff that introduced it. So maybe that was part of the misremembering. But yeah, there's a lot of theories on this. If you go into Reddit, this was big a couple of years ago. I think I remember seeing that. My theory is that it's kind of just an old-fashioned concept, right? Which I love. Like we have these icons and logos and other things that take us back to the 1800s. But like Fruit of the Loom, like it just doesn't really make any sense anymore. The loom is like what you use to weave fabric with, and I assume that they're talking about the fabrics used in there. But I don't think that many people have like a crystal clear idea of what a loom is anymore. And cornucopia, like that's old Roman stuff, right? And fruit being abundance and all this, like it just doesn't. So I think when people see, including myself, these two options, they don't think about it much. Like they're like Fruit of the Loom. Okay, there's fruit and there's something else. Maybe that's the loom, right?
It's two things, right?
Right. Two things instead of one. Like that's just fruit. There's no loom there, right? So that's kind of my theory. It's just like really kind of an old-fashioned idea that doesn't translate as well, and we're just kind of like glancing at it like, yeah, there's a cornucopia, loom, whatever. Right.
What does this say about your underwear choice, John? You a tighty whities guy?
No. No, we've been through this, Eddie. I wear boxer briefs.
That was not one of my 20 questions for you a couple weeks ago.
No, I think this was on our Ringer Shorts episode where you're like, you're going commando with your Ringer shorts. And I'm like, no, I still have my boxer briefs on underneath. So I know. I don't know. I don't know your underwear of choice outside.
We'll keep it that way.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So interesting stuff.
Did you follow all the hullabaloo around the Cracker Barrel logo?
No.
Oh, they recently changed their logo, and there was such an uproar over, a change of. I guess it was like an older Southern guy kind of resting on a barrel as their previous logo, and they moved it to just like something. Without the dude.
Just the barrel?
Just the barrel. Just people went crazy. Like, Jesus, still Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, people love their logos. All right, Eddie, let's move on to Q&A. I pulled in one. Did you find any others this week?
But no, I like yours. Let's explore that.
Why don't you ask it?
So it's from Xtekian, I'm not sure, Xtekian. Appreciate you sending in the question. But can you share which recent foam paddles have the most consistent KewCOR score across the face? Great question. Good timing for today's discussion point. In my mind, that would best represent a technical/objective sweet spot.
Yeah.
Man,
this is a great question, and I wish I would have actually done the research to answer it. I pulled the question in, and I was like, I'm going to get all these KewCOR results and plot them out, and I didn't do it.
Well, you did with the Luzz, so we can start with that.
So we'll push this back to next week, but we'll go back to that Lux, the Lux graph here, and the Inferno, very flat, low peak, and higher valleys, right? So there's not a big difference between the highest and the lowest performance spots on the paddle face, and that I do think is indicative. Now the question is, we'll flesh this out a little more next week. If we look at the Selkirk Boomstick, the Bread and Butter Loco, the Honolulu J2NF and FC Plus, and similar builds, are they going to have similar curves, flatter curves to this? And how do those compare to something that we traditionally consider to have smaller sweet spots or more erratic performance across the face? So going back to, the Gen 1 paddles, the engages and the paddle text and that sort of thing, and kind of take a look. So to be determined. So
without getting into any specific paddle, is there variability between paddles in how flat that curve is?
So between paddles, like within the same model, or? Just
between all the paddles.
Oh, yeah,
do you think that there are going to be differences in the... and how flat or not flat that curve is going to be.
For sure. I've seen curves on several paddles, and some of them have spikes and others don't. And, it looks, some of them have 2 spikes. So there's, it starts at 3 is the spike, it drops down at 4 and comes back at 5 and drops down at 6. So you get like a bifurcation there. And most just have 1 spike at 4, but it's not always the case. So yeah, interesting stuff to see what goes on.
Let's definitely revisit that. I think it's a great question.
Good stuff, Eddie. Hey, did we make it in under an hour today?
Ooh, yeah.
We will see. I think we're coming in right at an hour, Eddie. Good stuff. See you next week.
All right, John. Thanks.